My wife cheated with another man and didn't hang up the phone. I recorded 7 minutes of evidence. Now she's crawling back because she lost everything and has nothing left. I'm 27 years old. I work in it for a medium-sized company downtown, and 4 months ago my life exploded in the most ridiculous way possible. Like something you see in movies but never think will happen to you. The thing is, I found out my wife was cheating on me. And not in a normal way where you find messages or something like that. No. The truth is, she literally let me listen to her entire date with the other guy without realizing it. Sounds unreal, I know. But I swear it happened exactly like that, and I still have trouble processing it sometimes. Let me back up a bit so you understand the context. Olivia and I got married like 3 years ago. We'd been dating since college. You know, that typical love when you're in your 20s and you think everything's going to be perfect forever. She stopped working like a year and a half ago because, according to her, she wanted to focus on fixing up the house, on cooking better, on all those things, and I was okay with it because my salary was enough for both of us without problems. I mean, we weren't living in luxury, but we were comfortable. We had a 2-bedroom apartment in a decent area, paid the bills on time, that kind of thing. I guess looking back, I should have noticed some weird signs, like she started getting really dressed up to go to the supermarket or suddenly had a lot of outings with friends. But the truth is, I trusted her completely. It never crossed my mind that she could be doing something like that. The day everything was discovered was a regular Wednesday. I think it was March, or maybe late February. I'm not completely sure. I was at the office. It was already lunchtime, like 1 in the afternoon, and I decided to call Olivia because I wanted to ask her if she needed me to buy anything on the way home. I dialed her number. She answered super quick, said hello, all rushed, and I barely managed to say, "Hey babe," when I heard her say something like, "Wait a second," and then there was a click, like she had hung up. And normally that's where the call would have been cut off, right? Well, no. The phone didn't hang up properly. I don't know if she pressed the screen wrong or what happened exactly, but I was still connected and suddenly I started hearing her voice in the background. Kind of muffled, but perfectly understandable. At first I thought maybe she was with a friend or something, but then I heard a man's voice, and then I heard Olivia laughing in that special way. You know, that flirty laugh that women use when they're trying to impress someone. And my stomach twisted immediately because I recognized that tone. It was the same way she used to laugh with me when we were starting to date. I sat there at my desk with the phone stuck to my ear, completely frozen, while I listened to how my wife was clearly on a date with another guy. I could hear the background noise of a restaurant, plates and silverware, soft music, that atmosphere that a kind of fancy place has. And she was saying things like, "Oh no, you're so funny." And the guy was responding with that insufferable ladies' man voice you can imagine, all confident and seductive. The first thing I thought was, this can't be happening. Literally, my brain refused to process what I was hearing. But there it was, crystal clear. And suddenly the guy said something like, "I love seeing you. I miss these moments with you." And she responded, "Me too. It's been so difficult lately." Difficult? What the hell was she talking about? I worked like 12 hours a day so she could stay home doing whatever she wanted, paid all the bills, never denied her anything, and apparently that was difficult for her. I felt the anger starting to rise through my chest, but at the same time I was in total shock, like paralyzed, and the only thing I managed to do was open the recording app on my phone and start recording everything because something in my head told me, you're going to need this as evidence. I stayed there recording for 47 complete minutes. Can you believe it? 47 minutes of listening to my wife flirting with another guy, talking about how much she enjoyed being with him, about how I apparently didn't understand her, about how she felt alone in our marriage. I even heard when they ordered food. The guy ordered an expensive wine that he mentioned by name, like showing off, and she said, "Oh, how sophisticated you are," with that syrupy voice that made me want to throw up. At one point, she mentioned the name of the restaurant, a French bistro that was like 20 minutes from my office, a place we never went to because she always said that kind of restaurant was pretentious and a waste of money. Apparently, they were only pretentious when she went with me. Bradley, a coworker who sits in the cubicle next to mine, realized something was wrong because I guess he saw my face. I was completely pale and shaking. He came over and asked if I was okay, and I didn't even know what to tell him. I just showed him. To the phone where I was still recording, and whispered to him, "She's having a date with another guy right now." Bradley turned white too and told me, "You have to get out of here. I'll cover for you with the boss. Go and take care of this." So, I grabbed my things, sent a quick message to my supervisor saying I had a family emergency, and rushed out of the office toward that bistro. The drive was like an eternity, even though it was only 20 minutes. My mind was racing, thinking about what exactly I was going to do. If I was going to make a scene or just confront her calmly or what. The recording kept running on my phone and I kept hearing fragments. At one point she said something like, "Nathan doesn't even notice anything. He's so into his work." And the guy responded, "Poor guy, but his loss is my gain." I almost crashed into the car ahead when I heard that. I had to brake hard and the guy behind me honked. I don't remember exactly how I got to the restaurant without having an accident because, honestly, I was driving on autopilot. Everything was like a horrible dream I couldn't wake up from. When I got to the bistro, I parked across the street and sat there for a moment trying to calm down and think clearly. I could see inside the restaurant through the large windows it had at the front. It was an elegant place indeed, with white tablecloths and all that stuff, and after searching a bit with my eyes, I found them. They were at a table near the window. Olivia had her back to me, but I could see the guy perfectly. A guy in a suit who looked like those smug executives, probably like 35 years old. Hair slicked back with gel, all well-groomed. And the worst part is they looked so comfortable together, so natural, like they had done this 1,000 times before, and probably that's how it was. I took like 3 deep breaths, stopped the recording on my phone because I already had enough evidence, and went into the restaurant. The host greeted me with that professional smile and asked if I had a reservation. And I just told him I'm going to that table over there, pointing to where Olivia and the guy were. I crossed the restaurant and felt like everyone was staring at me, even though probably nobody was paying attention to me. And when I got to the table, I just stood there next to it waiting for them to notice my presence. Olivia saw me first, and the transformation in her face was something I'll never forget. She went from being smiling and relaxed to completely terrified in half a second. Like literally the wine glass she had in her hand fell and broke against the floor, making a horrible noise that did make everyone in the restaurant turn to look at us. The guy, who I later found out was named Zachary, looked at me, confused, and asked, "Who are you?" And I just said, "I'm Nathan, Olivia's husband. Pleasure to meet you." My voice came out much calmer than I felt inside. I think I was in automatic mode so I wouldn't collapse completely right there. Olivia started, stammering something, like, "Nathan, what are you doing here? This isn't what it looks like." And I took out my phone and pressed play on the recording with the volume up high. Her own voice was heard saying Nathan doesn't even notice anything. He's so into his work. And then Zachary's voice responding, "Poor guy, but his loss is my gain." Zachary's face transformed too, from confused to horrified. And he looked at me and then at Olivia and said, "You told me you were separated? You said you were already getting divorced." And there it hit me, the full extent of Olivia's lies. She hadn't just been cheating on me, but had also lied to this guy, telling him our marriage was already over. Zachary stood up and told Olivia, "I can't believe you lied to me like this." And then looked at me and said, "I'm so sorry. I had no idea. If I had known you were still together, I never would have." And he left, leaving money on the table, just took off from the restaurant without looking back. Olivia tried to stop him, but he didn't even turn around. And then she turned to me, and the expression on her face changed completely. Suddenly, she went from being panicked to getting furious, like I was the bad guy in the movie for having discovered her. She told me, "You're a stalker. How dare you follow me and spy on me?" And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Like literally, I had just caught her in an affair with recorded evidence, and she was trying to make me feel guilty. I told her very calmly to shut up, that I didn't want to hear one more word from her mouth, that I was going to go back to the apartment to pack my things, and that's it, that this is over, that I was going to file for divorce. She immediately changed tactics. From being angry, she went to crying and begging, saying it was a mistake, that she loved me, that Zachary didn't mean anything. All the classic excuses you can imagine. But I didn't feel anything for her at that moment. It was like a switch had turned off in my head and I only saw a manipulative stranger in front of me. I turned around and left the restaurant while she kept calling me and people stared at us. It was humiliating, but honestly, I didn't care anymore. The first thing I did when I got in the car was call the bank and cancel all the credit cards where she was an authorized user. And then I called the other account we had jointly, a savings account, and asked them to remove me from that account and open a new one in just my name, transferring all the money that was mine, basically like 90%, because I was the only one contributing. I did all that in the restaurant parking lot while my brain was still on autopilot. I wasn't thinking emotionally, but only practically, protecting my finances before she could do any damage. The bank representative asked me if I was sure because it was a big change, and I just told him completely sure. Do it right now, please. Then I drove back to the apartment, and Olivia arrived like 5 minutes after me. She must have ordered an Uber or something because her car was at home. I was already packing my things in suitcases, taking clothes out of the closet, my important documents, my laptop, everything that was really mine and necessary. She came into the room and started the show again, crying and saying to forgive her, that she would change, that we could go to couples therapy, that she would stop seeing Zachary. Like that was enough to fix everything. I told her no, that it's over, that there was no going back after this, and she threw herself dramatically on the bed saying that if I left her she wouldn't know what to do, that she had no job or money or anything. And that's where I realized that was the real problem for her. Not that she was losing her husband, but that she was losing her source of income. Basically, I had been her human credit card, and now that was ending. She was desperate. I told her it wasn't my problem, that she should have thought about that before cheating on me and kept packing. Then, she changed tactics again and started threatening me, saying she was going to tell everyone that I abused her, that I was abusive, that she was going to make up horrible things about me if I dared to leave her. That froze my blood because I knew there were women who did that and ruined innocent men's lives. But I tried to stay calm and just told her to do whatever she wanted, that I had evidence of everything and that nobody would believe her. I finished packing 2 large suitcases with the essentials and called Mason, a friend from college I'd kept in touch with, and explained the situation super quickly and asked if I could stay at his place for a few days while I found my own place. Mason, without hesitation, told me yes, to come over whenever I wanted, that he had a guest room available. So I grabbed my suitcases and left the apartment while Olivia yelled at me not to go, that I would regret it, that she was going to destroy my life. I closed the door and left without looking back, literally shaking from the adrenaline and stress of everything that had happened in the last few hours. I got to Mason's house like at 7 at night. He opened the door and just hugged me. Like he didn't say anything at first, just gave me one of those hugs you need when your life is falling apart. And then he told me, "Relax, brother, this will pass. You're going to be okay." I settled into his guest room and threw myself on the bed without even having dinner. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to process everything. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. They were calls and messages from Olivia, at first pleading and then increasingly aggressive, and eventually I put it on silent because I couldn't take it anymore. The next morning, Mason made me coffee and told me I needed to get a lawyer immediately, that I couldn't let time pass because Olivia was clearly going to try to screw me over however she could. But he was right. So I searched on Google for divorce lawyers in the city and found one with good reviews who had availability for that same day. I missed work again. Sent a message to Bradley explaining that I needed to resolve this urgently, and he told me not to worry, that he'd cover for me. I went to the lawyer's office. A guy like 50 years old named Richard, showed him the recording, told him the whole story, and he just shook his head and told me, "You've done everything right so far. You have solid evidence. This is going to be relatively simple." Richard explained to me that we were going to file for divorce on grounds of her fault, that with the evidence of infidelity, I wasn't going to have to pay alimony or anything like that, that basically each person was going to keep their own stuff, and that's it. He prepared the papers for me and told me that in a few days he was going to send someone to deliver the divorce petition to Olivia. I left that office feeling a bit better, like at least there was a plan in motion and I wasn't alone navigating this disaster. Meanwhile, Olivia had started her smear campaign just as she had threatened. She started calling mutual friends, my family, whoever she could think of, telling them that I had abandoned her for no reason, that I was a horrible husband, that she was devastated. Some called me confused, asking what had happened, and I just sent them the recording and told them, "Listen to this and then tell me what you think." Most went silent after hearing the evidence and told me they were so sorry, that they had no idea Olivia was like that. But some, especially her friends, kept blaming me, saying that surely I had pushed her to do that by being a bad husband, that mentality of always defending the woman no matter what. Like 4 days later, the process server arrived at the apartment and delivered the divorce papers to Olivia. I was at work when that happened, but my lawyer called me to confirm she was served and that now we had to wait for her response. Olivia called me like 20 times that day, left voicemails screaming and crying, saying how dare I do this to her, that she was going to fight the divorce, that she was going to take every last penny from me. I didn't answer any of her calls, just forwarded everything to my lawyer so he'd have a record of the harassment. Then she did something truly stupid that ended up benefiting me. Turns out, when I left, I had only taken my personal things from the apartment, but there were still some of my things there, like books, some furniture I had bought, that kind of stuff. Well, Olivia, in a fit of rage, decided to take all those things to the apartment balcony. We were on a 4th floor and literally threw them off the balcony to the street. She threw books, clothes I had left behind, even an old laptop I had stored, everything falling to the street and the parking area. The neighbors called the police because it was obviously dangerous and destructive, and when the officers arrived and saw the mess, they went up to the apartment and found her still throwing things. The police arrested her for destruction of property and disturbing the peace. They had her in custody for like a few hours and then released her with a citation for court. But the best part of it all was that the building had security cameras and everything was recorded. Olivia throwing my things off the balcony in a completely irrational fit of rage. This was incredibly useful because when she later tried to say I was the abusive and violent one, I had video evidence of her being the destructive and aggressive one. My lawyer was happy with this. He told me she had basically dug her own legal grave. Oh, and I also found out that Olivia had emptied the joint savings account before I could completely block it. She took out like $3,000 that were there. But since I had documented everything with the bank and had proof that that money came from my deposits, my lawyer said we were going to be able to recover it in the divorce process. Also, she tried to use the credit cards I had canceled, and obviously they were declined. And according to the bank, she called furious, demanding they reactivate them. But since I was the account holder, they told her they couldn't do anything. What I didn't expect was that Zachary, the guy Olivia was cheating on me with, contacted me like 2 weeks after all the drama. He sent me a message on Facebook saying he needed to talk to me, that he had information that could help me. I was super skeptical. I thought maybe it was a trap or something, but I decided to answer him and we met at a public cafe. Zachary arrived looking completely defeated, apologized to me again, explained to me that Olivia had told him they'd been separated for like 6 months, that the divorce was already in process, that basically there was nothing between us two anymore. And then he handed me his phone where he had messages from Olivia, from like 4 months ago. Months before I discovered everything. In the messages she was saying horrible things about me, that I was boring, that I didn't satisfy her, that I only cared about work, a bunch of lies and exaggerations. But the most important thing was that in several messages she explicitly mentioned that we were still living together and that I had no idea about anything, basically admitting in writing that she was cheating on me. Zachary told me I could use those messages as evidence if I needed them, that he felt terrible for having been part of this without knowing it, that she had manipulated him too. I thanked him and told him I had no resentment toward him, that obviously he had also been deceived, and we said goodbye on good terms. I passed all those messages to my lawyer, who was delighted because it was more evidence of the infidelity and that Olivia had premeditated all of this. With all this evidence piling up, Olivia's legal position was completely crumbling, and her own lawyer was probably telling her she had no case. The divorce process took like 3 months in total, which according to my lawyer was relatively fast considering how contentious these cases usually are. Olivia tried to fight for alimony, for me to pay her rent for an apartment, for a bunch of things, but the judge saw all the evidence of the infidelity, the recordings, the messages, the building video, and basically told her she wasn't going to receive anything. The apartment where we lived was under my name because I had rented it before we got married, so she had to leave and find her own place. The furniture and things were divided relatively fairly. I recovered my $3,000 that she had taken out, and that was it. The final divorce decree arrived like mid-June, I think, and it was the most liberating day of my life, honestly. I was no longer legally tied to that person. I no longer had to worry about her manipulations or her lies. I was simply free. Mason organized a small celebration at his house with some close friends. Nothing extravagant, just some pizzas and beers, but it meant a lot to me to have that support. Now it's October. Like 4 months have passed since everything was legally finalized, and the truth is, I'm in a much better place than I ever thought I'd be. I got my own apartment, a one-bedroom place that's good for just me. I decorated it to my taste without having to ask anyone's opinion, and the peace I feel when I get home and know there's no drama waiting for me is incredible. Work is going well. Bradley is still a great friend and covers for me when I need it. My boss understood the situation and was understanding about all the time I had to take. I've had some difficult days. I'm not going to lie, especially at the beginning when I was processing everything. There were nights at Mason's house where I'd stay up late questioning myself if I had done something wrong, if somehow I had pushed Olivia to do what she did. But eventually I understood that her actions were only hers, that it wasn't to blame for her decisions. Therapy helped too. I started going to a psychologist like 2 months after all the drama, and it's been useful for processing the betrayal and loss of trust. Olivia tried to contact me a couple times after the divorce, supposedly to close the cycle and talk about what happened. But I blocked her everywhere because honestly, I have nothing to say to her and don't want to know anything about her life. I heard through third parties that she's living with her mom because she can't afford a place alone, that she's looking for work, but it's been hard for her because she was so long without working. And part of me feels sorry for her, but another part thinks it's exactly what she deserves for her decisions. Last week, I went out with a girl for the first time since all this. Nothing serious yet, just a coffee and a walk through the park, but it was nice to feel that I can start to trust someone new eventually. I'm not in a hurry to get into another serious relationship. The truth is, I prefer to take my time and focus on myself for now, but it's good to know the possibility is there when I'm ready. I guess what surprises me most about all this is how quickly life can change completely. Like on a normal day, you're thinking everything is fine, and the next day your world is upside down. But it also surprises me how strong I turned out to be. I never thought I could handle something like this, but here I am, 4 months later, living alone, being independent again, and feeling good about that. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, if I'm going to get married again someday or if I'm going to stay single, but for now I'm happy with where I am, and that's enough.